Thank you, John and Helen. Financial planning is a topic that is important to me because writing lists and creating spreadsheets are my thing. And my belief is everyone needs to have an income expenditure document. And if the COVID pandemic has taught us anything, it's the importance of planning our finances because frankly, this is one of the things that can make us sink or swim. So with me to discuss how we can all become better financial planners is Taiwo Okwo, the founder of FemMinty, an educational platform that focuses on promoting financial education to develop a solid financial foundation and build financial wealth. Taiwo is currently a vice president at the African Finance Corporation, where she leads infrastructure investments and developments in multiple sectors across Africa. Funny thing, it turns out Taiwo and I share some interesting things. One is we have the same maiden name of Shonuga, but we aren't related. And two, our fathers are both traditional rulers in their respective constituencies in Ogun State. Welcome, Taiwo.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. And, it's such a coincidence that we have some similarities. So
yes, it is. Yes, it is. So let's delve right in. What is financial planning?
Wow. Very, very relevant question, as you said, Farron. Financial planning is essentially a step-by-step guide for you to achieve your life goals.
Step-by-step guide.
Correct.
To achieve your life goals.
Correct. And what do I mean by that? We all have aspirations, desires, and goals that we want to achieve in our lives. So without a plan, you're very much unlikely to achieve those goals. Right. So what a financial plan does for you is to provide you with a roadmap to get to those goals. Right. For example, your income that you earn on a monthly basis, your expenditure, your spending. You need to understand where your money is going, your ingoings and outgoings, and also your savings and investment. So what a financial plan does for you is to provide you with a roadmap for you to achieve those goals and your aspirations.
Does that mean that you have to have lots of money to be able to plan financially?
I would say absolutely not. Okay. And if the pandemic has taught us anything, I would say there's a silver lining in that, right? Okay. That you don't need a lot of money to be able to to do financial planning or even to achieve your long-term goals. With a little amount of money, you can actually set yourself for success in the long term. Okay. What do I mean by that? When you have limited resources, you can actually become more disciplined. And the first thing you need to do actually is to be able to allocate those limited resources to what you need. We're gonna get to the key fundamentals here about planning, right? And economics. When it comes to spending money, it's important for you to identify between your needs and wants.
Yes, we were talking about that yesterday.
Yes, absolutely right. So what are your needs? My needs are things I need to survive. Yes. On a day-to-day basis. Yes. I need to pay for my kids' tuition. I need to make sure I have a roof over my head. I need to fuel my car with transport. Yes. And then wants are things that are desires. Okay. Where we all have desires, but I think with the particularly challenging economic environment, it's important to really focus more on your needs as opposed to your wants. Okay. So you don't really, in order for you to be financially successful, I would say post-pandemic, we're all excited that things are opening up, are getting better. I would say prioritize your needs. Okay. And then when it comes to some wants that you do want to achieve, it's okay, but you can actually plan to achieve those wants and be very, very selective.
So I was going to touch on that because you just said prioritize your needs over your wants. But here's the thing. Nigeria is stressful. We all have to indulge once in a while. So are you technically telling me that I cannot indulge?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you one of my own indulgences, right? I like my croissant and my hot chocolate, okay? So if I don't have that maybe on a weekly basis, then I don't feel good, okay. Right? So I would say we live in a very consumer-driven society as well, and we'll be honest. And most of us, we grow up from being children to adult, and we learn to spend money, not even manage money. So what we need to do is to just focus on the key needs that gets us by on a day-to-day basis. But we also have wants.
Okay.
And wants like, designer brands, you don't need to have that. You can get by with some things.
That can be a need for some people, to be fair.
You're absolutely right. And when it comes to financial planning, you need to understand your own unique situation, right?
Yes.
If designer gear is something that is so important to you, then you have to make sure that you find your financial resources and money to be able to meet that, not at the expense of maybe your child's school fees or your car, right? You don't want to not have a car and then you start trekking.
So what I'm getting from you is, one, you have to look at your needs and your wants, but you also have to take into cognizance your personality type, who you are, what is important to you.
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head. I was going to come to that. When it comes to money, we all have different ways we manage money, personality types. Some people are spenders; they like to spend money. Some people like to budget, and some people like to save. So it's important that when it comes to you putting a financial plan in place, try to understand your personality. It doesn't have to be a straitjacket, right? Because most people tend to think a financial plan as something that it's going to make their life hell. You put in plan a place that is unique to yourself. So if, for example, you have specific goals that you want to achieve in the next 12 months, for example, I want to change the AC in my house. Then you need to start thinking ahead of time and putting some money in place. If it's a 12-month goal, then you know that maybe you need to start funding that on a monthly basis, setting 5K aside to meet that objective.
Okay, so all very important things, but I'll be honest, it sounds boring. It sounds like, really? This is really quite stressful. So the question I want to ask now is, how do I make it a lifestyle habit without losing myself if I'm the kind of person who gets bored quite quickly?
Okay. I'll start by saying that, a lot of us don't do it because we don't know the significance of financial planning, right? So one of the key things that financial planning helps you is to beat life's emergencies, and we know that life happens. A pandemic is a classic example. A lot of us had to deal with salary cuts because our employers were not making enough money. That's just the nature of things that happen.
The reality of life.
Exactly. Some people lost their jobs and they had to maybe go borrow. So if you have a financial plan and emergency fund, it allows you to meet that. So I think what I'm trying to say is that finance might seem a little bit too boring, but A, it helps you to meet life emergencies, right? B, you're able to live with a peace of mind. There's nothing like you having peace of mind, right? You're able to care for your family, you're able to set some money aside, and just also enjoy some of the desires that you like as well.
So let me simplify this, or let us simplify this for people. There are the two key things that I'm curious about. One, I'm earning below minimum wage, and cost of living is high. We already know that onion now costs something like 100 naira for one onion. So I don't even have enough to start off with. How do I then become a better financial planner? That's one part of it.
That's it.
Yeah. The other part of it now is, how do I simplify this financial planning model in a manner that, regardless of my earning bracket, I am able to do it without it becoming bothersome?
Okay. I'll take the second part of the question first, right?
Okay.
The best way to do it is just write it down. Write down your expenses. Write down what you're spending on a day-to-day basis. I think the good thing about technology is that we're moving away from being a society that uses cash to more debit cards and credit cards. So you can have a record. So just log onto your bank account and then write down what you're spending your money on. By being able to track your expenses, right, you're able to now decide, what are the things that I don't even really need on the monthly basis. Do I need to start spending that extra amount of money on new clothes or new shoes, or do I even need to go to the cinema as often as possible? But bearing in mind that it's still okay for you to do those things, but maybe you need to just reduce it to a certain extent.
Or budget for it.
Or budget for it, right? Writing it down and budgeting. You hit the nail on the head, right? What is budgeting? It's not something, it's just a plan. It's just you writing down what you do with your money, right? Your ingoings and outgoings, and you've been able to explain, to somebody or yourself, being accountable that, I'm making 10,000 naira on a monthly basis. I spend 5,000. I have 5,000 extra. And that 5,000 extra naira, I'm going to put 2,000 towards savings. I'm going to use another 2,000 to, repair some things in my house, which I've been putting off for a long time. And the extra 1,000 might be my entertainment budget, right? So that's why budgeting is so important. And to answer your second question about, I'm already on minimum wage. Life is hard enough already. I think that's the fact, right? We live in a very, the pandemic has even made things much more difficult. What I would say to somebody in that particular, situation is that know your burn rate. What is the burn rate, right? Your burn rate is really your fixed, your fixed cost on a monthly basis. What are the things that
burn rate?
Your burn rate, yeah. Okay. What are the things that you must absolutely spend money on and budget around that? Because at the moment you're not earning so much money. You don't have extra. So as long as you can cover your burn rate during this particularly challenging time, then set your budget around it. You'll be fine. And in the meantime, I would say think about educating yourself and developing new skills, because that's what's going to enable you to earn more.
Yes.
So those are the two key strategies I would advocate for. Okay. Like know your burn rate, your fixed cost, budget around those fixed costs, and then just educate yourself, develop new skills, so you can propel yourself to earning more.
I want to add to that because we've mentioned the word budget a few times.
Yeah.
And let us not assume everybody understands what a budget is. In the simplest form, a budget is a list. Onion, 500 naira. Tomato, 200 naira. Diesel, 1,000 naira. Literally, a list of items and the cost of those items.
Absolutely.
And then next to that is, okay, my salary is 50,000 naira. These are the things I need to spend money on. I need to spend money on feeding. I need to spend money on phone bills. I need to spend money on transportation, all of those types of things. So it's literally just a list of what you need to spend money on versus how much money you come in. That, to my understanding, is the foundation of a budget.
It is, and you put it very well. And one thing you also need to put in your budget as well is savings, right? You have to include savings. You can't have a financial plan without allocating savings. Some of that money to savings. Same things as emergencies as well, right? You need to set some money aside for emergencies and even gifts, right? We all have families, and you need to spend.
So sorry that I keep interjecting, because like I said to you yesterday, this is something that's really, really very passionate to me. So again, simplifying, savings is a must. It's not a nice to have. It's a must have.
Absolutely.
Because emergencies will happen, life will happen. So the easiest practice for anybody in terms of savings is you just decide what percentage of your income you're going to save. And you make sure that that percentage can cover some basic emergencies, like if you have to go to the hospital, if you have to do X, Y, and Z. So that savings must always be there. And the trick I find is to put in a different account that you don't have easy access to. But it's really key to simplify, because a lot of times when we hear finance, when we hear about financial planning, people's eyes start glazing over in reality. So
I'll tell you what one way to do the savings thing is this principle of pay yourself first, right? It's very, very simple, and a lot of us don't do it. It's about you've worked very hard on a monthly basis, right? And then you get your alert, right? Your salary, and it comes in. I would say pay yourself first. Allocate, is it 10% or 20% to yourself, and that money goes into a separate account. So a good example, like I said, if you're earning 100,000 naira a month, and you now decide to put 10% aside, because your ability to save also depends on your income and your personal situation. So if you put 10% aside, automatically, that's the word, right? You deduct it to a savings account. You now have the 90,000 to live on to meet all your
So when
expenses.
You're saying pay yourself first, you're not talking about pay yourself money you need to live on. You're saying pay yourself money that is actually savings.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Pay yourself for the money you're not going to touch, and live with the remaining 80 to 90%.
Okay. So if you were going to give us 5 key things to note to become better financial planners, what would it be, regardless of what our income bracket is?
I would say, number 1, know your current situation, right? You need to assess what your own current situation is. Understand your income, make that list, right? Your income, your expenses, your savings, and any debt that you have. You need to know what your current situation before you can make a change.
Yes.
Because as you can imagine, if you're not doing anything, if you're not practicing now, it's so difficult to make a transition into becoming a person who's financially planned. It's not impossible, right? So know your current situation. Number 2 is track your spending.
Okay.
It's so important that you understand everything that you spend your money on.
Okay.
The good thing the pandemic has taught us is that we can live without some things, right?
Yes. Yes.
So know your expenses, and once you have a list, you can identify some of the things that you can live without, and funnel some of that money into a savings, because it's so important.
So is that number 3?
That's number 2. Number 3 is now build an emergency fund.
Build an emergency fund.
So because the making of the tracking of the expenses is what gives you the additional money to save, and then you can channel that money into emergency fund.
Okay.
To as a cushion.
Okay.
To meet unexpected expenses, and then even I always like to tell people, right, that even unexpected opportunities, right?
Okay.
There's times you might have an opportunity, an investment
maybe
opportunity.
Invest or something.
Yes. So if you don't have that money, then you can't take it. So
very true.
Yeah.
Very
so.
true.
Having that emergency fund set aside to take unexpected opportunities. Number 4, I would say, is try to spend less. Spend less as possible. There's always there's this rule about spending and living within your means. Yeah, we're all guilty.
This is relative.
Yeah, I agree, but I think I can imagine that we need a shift in mindset, because the pandemic is, look, we're not going to kid ourselves, right? It's definitely opened our eyes when it comes to our personal finance journey. So I would say living within your means, as opposed to living above your means. It's so important. Okay. And the final one is I would say, in that budgeting, in that financial planning, building a slush fund. Like I always call it a slush fund for yourself, to make yourself feel good, like your entertainment, your treats.
Yeah. I call it my entertainment budget.
Yeah, entertainment budget. So it doesn't feel that it's such a hard thing to do. I always call it like my slush fund, whether it's to buy gifts, for family, for friends.
I actually even have a separate line item for gifts.
Yeah.
And then a separate one for entertainment that is for me.
Absolutely. So that your own personal thing that you enjoy, that you like, you need to set aside, some money for it. And it's just going to be much fun. You won't feel like you're just being too strict on yourself. So those are the top 5 tips, I would say.
Tips.
Yeah.
Those are very good 5 tips. And I will add a quick caveat. This is a simple thing to do. You don't have to have a computer. You don't have to do it on a spreadsheet. You can do it on your phone. Every phone now most phones have like notes apps. You can write it down on a piece of paper. I actually do all 3. I do my main one on my spreadsheet that I look at regularly, and then I do my phone for short term, and then I also have a piece of paper that I'm always writing everything on. So it is actually quite easy to do it regardless of your level of education or your income bracket.
That's absolutely correct. I use my phone for a lot of things as well, right? You make notes, but just make sure your phone doesn't get lost and somebody has access to it. But like you said,
exactly. So you have backup,
and then embrace technology as well. That you can't, you can log onto apps, and some things have become so simple these days for us to be able to become financially, savvy and financially, educated.
Awesome. So the main thing I've taken out of this is the fact that it is simple. It is easy to do, and it is not a one-size-fits-all. Just make it work for yourself. Needs and wants, very, very important. Thank you so, so much, Taiwo. It has been a really enlightening, very short but very impactful conversation, and it has been a true honor to have you here with us today. Thank you so much. It's
been a pleasure. I really love the session, the show, and the topic as well. It's so topical. We can't afford not to,
talk about it.
Talk about it.
We'll just keep talking about it, So, Up next with us is our favorite fitness expert, Dolly Phillips.